Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at our ongoing last-minute bit of that snowstorm going up in New England. There's a few other things going on currently. We're also going to be talking about a couple of storms, maybe even a few storms that could be pretty major in the medium to long range. Even some are coming up here within the next 5 to 7 days. So we're going to need to talk about all of these things within this video. Anyways, before I get into things, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. For today's comment of the day, I want to know, do you think that we're going to have a major East Coast snowstorm at any point over the next 7 to 14 days or so? Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Let's get straight into this video, and first things first, we're taking a look at our current radar imagery. There is a few showers going on up here. This is still blue from something I was doing yesterday. I usually use yellow. We'll stick with this blue and see how it looks though. There's a few showers going on up here as well. And then along the eastern seaboard, we have multiple areas of precipitation within here. I would say 3 different regions here mostly. Even some lightning bolts you can see offshore. I don't know if that's that glitching or if there's actually some thunderstorms somewhere going on. Now I'm going to switch this back to yellow because it's actually bothering me. But what we're going to do here is zoom into some of these different regions. There is some precipitation up here for Washington ongoing. I always start out with this region because they're always seeing precipitation. And we always go from west to east. I don't know why. It's just what I've become comfortable with. But we do see some rain showers mostly, but also some snow here for some of the higher elevations and some very isolated showers. Also, there's some very isolated pockets of rainfall moving onshore here to the very far western regions of Washington there. Now, as we take a little bit of a more zoomed out look, we can see there is some rainfall showers up here potentially for North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming there. Couldn't tell if that was Colorado or Wyoming. The 2 square states, get kind of mixed up depending on the view that we're taking a look at. But some of these are making their way into northern Nebraska as well. I'm actually shocked that these are rainfall, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of this is snowfall. I feel like, especially for Montana and North Dakota here, I find it hard to believe that it would be rainfall this time of year. But maybe I'm completely wrong, and the temperatures are very, very marginal. But it's hard to say. Actually, we can turn on the temperature observation. So let's take a look. Let's just do our due diligence here and figure out what the temperatures are like. It's going to load in here in just a second. And then we'll be able to see, there we go. Okay, I mean, it's mid-30s, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is snow or rain. It just depends on what the upper temperatures are like, which I'm not going to bore you and try to find those. So, yeah, maybe rain, maybe snow, but it's light regardless, and it's not going to bring too many impacts. We can see our precipitation typing does turn off, but we do have the lakes still active. We saw that yesterday. These are moving quite quick, but we do have some showers moving into these regions. And then also here, we also have some lake effect snowfall trying to take place for these regions as well. The heaviest regions is northern Michigan there in the lower peninsula, and then also here in New York near the Finger Lakes regions. We've also had quite a bit of heavier snowfall taking place there. So as we zoom in, yeah, the upper end there of I-75, especially earlier on, we had some heavier snowfall ongoing, as you can see, for those regions that kind of dissipated over time. We kind of saw that die down. And then also near Buffalo, we've had actually quite a bit of snowfall taking place all the way into Rochester there, as you can see, as this plays out. That's kind of built in over the past couple of hours, and I expect that to continue as everybody's waking up, 8, 9, 10 a.m. That shouldn't completely dissipate by then, so you will be dealing with that this morning during your morning commute. Now, we do have this area of showers, but I think that's south of Texas, so we're not going to talk too much about it. For southeastern United States, and mostly Florida here, we do have some heavier precipitation ongoing here, especially in those yellows. We can see it doing that training that I've kind of taught you guys about, where it's moving in this direction and it's elongated. So areas like Jacksonville there and other areas north of Orlando there, we're seeing probably a lot of rainfall because, these heavier showers are continuously hitting these regions over and over and over again over the course of multiple hours. So that's when you kind of get a lot of rainfall in those regions when you see something like that going on. Now that is going to kind of move offshore actually. So I don't expect many of these regions to see impacts from this. Although yesterday we did have our own little bit of a storm system, which is now this one up here, which is our final thing we need to talk about. We do see that this is in the form of snow for these regions. even heavy at times. Those blues are indicating very heavy snowfall. The bright whites are indicating moderate to heavy snowfall, likely pretty heavy actually, but the blues are definitely, visibility is probably reduced in those areas. That is some of the heaviest snowfall you can really get is 30 dBz to 40 dBz. That is extremely heavy snowfall. Now, these areas down here for coastal Maine down through southern New England, we are seeing heavier rainfall in spots, especially here near Boston, Rhode Island, and then I would say eastern Connecticut is where we've seen the heaviest of the rainfall. And I'll zoom in here and we'll take a look. But yeah, mostly this area that I'm circling here has seen the heaviest rainfalls. We see areas like Cape Cod, Providence, Westerly, Boston, all of those regions are included in this area that has seen the heaviest rainfall overnight. Now, the good thing is that during the morning commute for these regions, it should be mostly moved out because as you can see by the very end, it's about 7 a.m. right now. So the morning commute is just getting started. Everything's kind of lightened up already, unless you're probably over here by Cape Cod where things will be done in just about an hour or so. Anyway, that's it for the current radar. Let's move into the modeled guidance. Now we're going to be using our GFS model today, which is historically known as a not good model, so usually people would make fun of you if you're using primarily the GFS model, but this year, this has been a different type of model. It's very interesting that we've seen this model develop so much, and honestly, it's been a slow process. A lot of people haven't noticed that, but I feel like the GFS has improved over the years, whereas maybe 10 years ago, it was a complete joke. Well, now it has improved a lot to where it is a little bit competitive with the European model as far as what model is the best. That is debatable based on who you ask, but a lot of people love the European model. I love the European model as well, but today we're using the GFS model because it's so similar to the European model, although we get a little bit of an extended range here with our GFS model. So the pattern we're in right now, things are obviously very cold if you're in the east, so you've probably noticed that. I don't know what to tell you, but we're basically looking like this. We do have a bit of a trough here. Diving down into the eastern United States, we do have a low pressure system here. Usually you see that, a low pressure system somewhere in the middle of a trough like this. This is that low pressure system that kind of slides offshore, like I said. And generally, we're going to see warmer temperatures building in for the west. That's the pattern right now. This is actually Wednesday that we're taking a look at, so one day from now, but it's basically right now. Now, as we move this forward, we see that trough kind of subside. But already by the time we're reaching early on Friday, we're seeing another low pressure system build in. This is this time actually a pretty strong clipper that you can see here, bringing snowfall to multiple different states. We're going to be watching for that. Strong clippers are pretty rare, but we are going to see one, and it's mostly going to impact these regions. And with that, what's going to happen is we're going to see this build in right here. As it moves up, it's going to move up just like this, right? What we're going to see happen is we're going to see this counterclockwise motion really cause the cold air to dive down into these regions. So we'll watch this play out. See how it shoves behind it, this cold air. We see this pretty frequently as well. Now we have a trough centered over the central United States with a bit of a ridge in the southeast and a bit of a ridge in the kind of western United States. A big old high pressure system here in the middle that we can see. And over time, that's going to center itself more over the eastern United States. So typically, obviously, we know weather moves from west to east. So when we see a trough center over the central United States, it isn't too rare to see it kind of move eastward over time if we're in a more progressive pattern like we are in currently. So we will see these move from west to east. Eventually, this will move offshore of the East Coast in a similar fashion. And then, it just continues to cycle that way. Now, this is February 13th, one day before Valentine's Day. If my girlfriend's watching, yes, I remember what day Valentine's Day is. I actually forget sometimes. Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble here. So we can see that the southeast, we do have a storm kind of building in here that's going to be Sunday, February 13th, like I mentioned. We do have some snowfall building in for these regions. I know you guys up north have been kind of dying for some snow up here, but again, it just looks like the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast is going to feature another snowstorm potentially in this range. We are 100-plus hours out, which puts us more in the moderate range, in my opinion. Anything beyond 100 hours is moderate range, and I think anything beyond 7 days is going to be more like the long range for me. In kind of right now, we're looking at about 5 days, so that is kind of the medium to long range. But 7 days to 10 days is definitely the very long range, in my opinion. That's just how I look at things. So there is a bit of a low pressure system here, we could tell, because this is some lower pressure indicated right there. and that is going to move up with this trough, so we will watch that happen. But we're going to kind of see a secondary low as well. The interesting thing to note here is that if we get, because again, it is the longer range, medium to long range, if these actually combine and it's just one storm, we will see a much stronger storm somewhere in the middle of these two, and that could bring a much more impactful solution if that was to take place. Or we can see these be much more separate. Basically, any combination is possible, but we do see that this one is a bit far east, so we do see a tiny bit of snowfall along the coast, but this one is pretty far offshore. So that snow is not going to be able to make its way too far on shore, basically. We do have another low-pressure system here that is bringing snowfall a little bit further inland, but it's actually over more of the southern United States, like the Smokies, and some of the southern Appalachian mountains that kind of surround the Smokies. It is interesting that this is a very similar region to where we've seen a lot of snowfall this winter compared to normal, and we kind of continue with that pattern. North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina even see the most snowfall in this solution with the GFS. But again, I want to reiterate, this could change a lot. So let's see, where do I want to take this? Let's just look at a east zoom. We'll take a look at what the total snowfall is, although I don't know how important it is yet. So you can see most of the snowfall occurs within here, and really the heart of it is going to be over this region as of this point. That's what we're taking a look at. You can see snowstorm number 1 is here, and then this is kind of snowstorm number 2 and 1, but mostly snowstorm number 2. Again, those could come together, and then we would be taking a look at a much more major system with probably 6 to 10 inches, and maybe even 10 inches plus being featured somewhere. But instead, we're getting more like 2 to 6 here, 2 to 6 there. But again, combine the amounts, combine the two storms, and you're looking at a much more major solution. Regardless, I mean, 2 to 6 inches of snowfall is huge for Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and a bit of Virginia as well. So this would be a major snowstorm by all means for this region regardless, if this was to take place. So what we're going to do here is we're going to zoom out again, obviously, first off, and then I'm going to play out the rest of the pattern here on the GFS model, and then we're going to backtrack, and we're going to take a look at what the European model shows for that storm. So there it goes. We're left with very cold air behind it. The cold, as of now, is sufficient, so that's not a question. Right now, if the timing matches up how this shows, the cold is sufficient for a snowstorm that far south, with a massive trough there, massive ridge here. Jet stream looks about like this. It's perfect for an East Coast snowstorm. It's just about, will that storm hit at that time, or will it come in a little bit earlier or later? Because that nor'easter that we felt yesterday along the eastern seaboard, that was supposed to be a snowstorm in the more medium range, about like this. It looked like it would be a snowstorm, but the timing switched up and it was a bit warmer. So things like that changing in the medium to long range is a possibility that we need to pay attention to. Now here's a much more major storm we see in the central United States. We see actually a trough return to the west and a ridge in the east. And this is going to be more of your long range. This is about 7 days out, almost 10 days out. I would say it's about 8 or 9 days out, actually, by February 17th. Now, we can see that there's a big trough in the west. Jet stream looks about like this, and we see a big snowstorm here for a lot of the plains in through the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes. And I'm going to be watching for this. This is a storm signal. But again, this is the longer range. And then what ends up happening after this, we get a big trough in the east, big ridge in the west again. So that's the pattern we kind of return to by the 20th. And then there's not much to speak of beyond that. So we're watching for a signal of a storm in the central United States in the long range. This is the range where things can completely disappear or completely change. So just pay attention. There could be a storm somewhere around, the 16th to 18th time frame, because the timing could be off. But there could not be two. But we definitely have a signal at this point, which makes us more confident specifically on this time frame, as opposed to a time frame where these models aren't showing any storms. I hope that makes sense. Let's backtrack. Let's take a look at our European model. We're not going to take a look at the 6Z. We're going to take a look at the 0Z, because this gets a lot further for us. And we're going to pay attention to the eastern United States, because the one thing we're going to see on this model is actually our storm here. You're going to see that it's a bit different. The one thing that I did notice with the European model is it does kind of reel all this precipitation in, and you'll watch it kind of become one low pressure system, because by this point, we see it's all in this outer circle, but watch what happens over time. We see it kind of all come together. It all just reels in a little bit, and then it becomes one low pressure system. So that is a bit different than the GFS model. The main difference is the location. We can see this is much further offshore than the GFS model had. We need it to be about here at least, and head up more. So I would say there's only a 20 to 50 mile difference, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. But that would bring much more of the precipitation onshore to the eastern seaboard with that storm, and we don't have the secondary low that develops here on this one, so these areas get kind of left in the dust here in this solution. But the important thing, like I've always said to you guys, the important thing here is that both the GFS model and the European model show a storm offshore of the East Coast with sufficient cold right here. So that's a combo that could very easily lead towards a snowstorm, and we have a very strong signal that there will be something to watch right around Valentine's Day. Total snowfall, according to this model, is going to be very marginal. Obviously, a dusting, if anything, for northern North Carolina, southern Virginia there, which, with how this winter has gone, that would just tap onto a borderline almost historic winter for these regions. I live locally in that circle, somewhere in that circle, and I can tell you that with the combination of the two snowstorms, it has been, I wouldn't even go historically. I would say we have had winters where there's one single storm that brings more snowfall than we've seen this winter, although we're probably at least double our average as of right now, and any more snow on top of that just takes us higher up on the list of snowiest winters in recent history for this region. So it has been one of, I guess, in recent history, one of the bigger winners, but not necessarily the biggest yet. Not yet. So anyway, European models a little bit further offshore has one single low pressure system. GFS model is a little bit spread around with the precipitation compared to the European model, but it does have that storm closer onshore. So there is these differences that need to play out. We need to see, once they come together, where are they going to meet up with their solution? And that's going to be what's exciting to track over the next couple of days. So stick with us. We're going to be watching this storm daily to see if it pans out or not. I'm very excited to track it with you guys. Anyway, for today's confidence tab, because this storm is very far out, and that's the main subject that we focused on today, I'm actually still at a 4 out of 6. And who knows when I'll go up to a 5 out of 6, because we've seen these models become less confident once these storms are very, very close to happening. So we need to see what's going to happen with that as well. It'll be multiple days before I move away from a 4 out of 6. I can tell you that much. For today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, how long do you think that this nor'easter pattern is really going to persist? And James Marr said, I believe the nor'easter pattern will continue for the majority of the rest of the winter. And I definitely think it looks like that's going to be the case, because I suspected it would come to a bit of an end. But it just still hasn't. It's been so persistent. So for the time being, I don't really expect it to end anytime soon. We continue to see these models just persistently showing these storms move up the coast time after time. So I don't see it ending anytime soon, really. But it will probably just end at a certain point when we least expect it. For today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting this channel, but especially our platinum patrons, Bill Crates, James Wade, Dovey Nagel, Lily Pan, Mandy Birchfield, Patrick Strickland, Dave Scott, and Donna Carnes as well. I'd also to thank our diamond patrons, Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Horley, Mega Cotalasa, Catbite, Charles Stinnett, Bill Dallas, Gary's, and John Calisi also. I would also to thank our channel members, Catbite, Stephen Finn, and Jeremy Cox as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I'll see you guys in the next video.